everyone! My name is Hadel-Lynn and I've been living here in Boston for the past 3 magical years. I figured if you are on this video, you are determining whether or not the move to Boston is the right one for you. I'm going to be frank with you and tell you several pros and cons about living here in Boston. For more Boston related content, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe, as well as check out my Boston living playlist up above. And with that, we're gonna get ready to spill, a little tea. It's empty, but a little tea, metaphorical tea, regarding life here in Boston. So with that, let's get started. Now, we are gonna get started with the cons because we all want to know the bad things first. It's just human nature. One of the very first cons I want to talk about is how expensive the housing market is here. If you don't really understand how the apartment hunting situation is out here, check out my apartment hunting guide video right up above. I released it a few months ago, but I feel like the information is still pertinent. There are several annoying things about the housing market, but a few of them are that, one, people are outbidding each other for apartments that they haven't seen before just to rent, not to buy. I remember when I was helping someone find a new place, we would go to the listings and there would already be, on the first day of showings, 10 people had already put in an offer just because housing here is incredibly limited, just because Boston just doesn't have a lot of space. And on top of that, the housing market is expensive because there's a lot of students who come here. There's a lot of demand, and to be quite frank, not a lot of supply to meet that. There are a lot of places that require broker fees, and I don't understand the concept of a broker fee because you found the apartment and they want to charge you pretty much a month's rent for showing you the apartment that you found yourself. You can try your best to avoid looking for places that have broker's fees, but sometimes they're just hidden right in there. Now, another con I want to talk about are the infamous winters. The winters are very, very rough out here. All the other seasons are fine, but for some reason, winter is incredibly strong. I've learned recently that what the Canadian weather just likes to bring it down to the northeast, and I had to go to work in 0° Fahrenheit temperature, which actually felt more like -5 degrees because of the wind chill. It doesn't matter how many layers you're wearing, that is rough. If you're not in the main part of the city, if you need a car, you have to shovel out your driveway, shovel the snow off your car, and possibly shovel out the path that you need to drive out to, just because if the snow builds up, you will not be able to see anything. And then on top of that, you may have to drive in ice. And if you do not have experience in that, that is not fun. I don't drive, so that's not a problem for me. However, whenever I take the train, I do get nervous just because ice can build up and things can get very slow, things can get delayed. However, the good thing is that a lot of the trains are heated inside and it's so nice and cozy. But yeah, winters are really rough. So invest in a good winter coat. Do not cheap out on that because you only need one. Another frustrating thing that I've learned recently is that even though Boston is very walkable, it's not very handicap accessible. Now, the beautiful part about Boston is that a lot of the old school brownstone buildings are still in place, and those are historically very beautiful, very European type architecture. These type of living situations are not exactly the best for people who have certain disabilities. For one, a lot of these brownstone buildings, they don't have elevators, and it can go all the way maybe 4 or 5 stories, and it's those narrow staircases, and it's just not fun. Last year, I had to help out someone to move out of their apartment. They lived in the North End in those narrow staircases, and it was not fun going up 4 to 5 flights of stairs every single time for multiple trips because you can't just put it in an elevator and whatnot. I was considering throwing everything out the window because it just seemed faster, but that is not exactly the case in terms of saving money. In addition, a lot of the beautiful brick walkways, it can be a little uneven, and sometimes, if you are trying to use walkers, wheelchairs, crutches even, it can be a little bit difficult. I'm very privileged to say that it does not impact me directly, but I do want to give people a heads up, especially if you may require just any form of aid in terms of walking, just because it's gonna be a little bit rough. The next issue I want to talk about is the incredible lack of food diversity. Boston is not even close to New York when it comes to food diversity, where in New York, pretty much every block you walk on, there are food carts or even restaurants everywhere of all different types of cuisines. Boston, it is a little bit separated, where you have to venture out and know the areas of where you want to go in terms of food. I know, for me, I am Filipino, and there is still no Jollibee, which now I have decided that I don't want to live places that don't have Jollibee, just because that means there's not enough me, okay? I like having enough of me. However, I do want to modify the statement a little bit, just because I've certainly tried out different foods that I never had back in California. For one, there is a Yemeni-based restaurant called Baba Yemen. Boston itself needs to really improve on its food diversity, just because it could use a little bit of work. The last issue I want to talk about is how annoying it is that a lot of places close very early. Now, it made sense during the pandemic just because there wasn't enough staff and they wanted to, spend more time cleaning, but it still doesn't apply to this day. Even though, yes, COVID is still happening, it's at more manageable levels than it was earlier. But that doesn't excuse things being closed early. Now, I am not by any means someone who stays up late, but I would like the option, just in case if I wanted to go get food at 2 in the morning, that it's available. And on top of that, the trains, they don't stop necessarily, but they decrease in frequency the second that it passes midnight. So you would probably have to Uber. Okay, so now that we're done talking about the quote-unquote horrible things about Boston, let's move on to the good things. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is New England style food. I love it so much. When I was a kid, I grew up on the Navy bases a lot, and Dunkin' Donuts was pretty much at every Navy base, and I loved Dunkin' Donuts. And specifically, I love their Boston cream donuts. Even though I don't really drink a lot of coffee and stuff, I like having that option where every block there is a Dunkin'. I love cannolis. I love the North End Italian food. Oh, I recently have been converted to love New England style lobster rolls. I used to not like them, but now I do. It is so good on a summer day. And plus, who doesn't love a good lobster bisque or a good New England style clam chowder? If you love seafood, come out here. I love seafood so much, I can't live without it. The next beautiful thing that I want to talk about in terms of Boston is its history, and specifically the history of its sports. But recently, I just did a tour of Fenway Park, and I highly recommend it to everyone, even if you don't watch sports. Being able to tour Fenway Park for an hour for only $30 per person it was so cool on a nice summer day. On top of that, it is the most American thing you can do, and I loved it so much. You got to go over to the Green Monster, you got to go to the press box, you got to sit in the special areas that usually cost like $1,000 or something like that. And I love it so much. On top of that, in terms of history side, I will say, even though I don't find history too interesting, I at least find it incredibly interesting that wherever I walk, there are probably a few historical incidents that have happened there. My old job used to be over at Seaport side, and so I would actually walk past the Boston Tea Party. And I remember I learned about that, like second, third grade. So it's really cool being able to pass by things that you learned in textbooks and then see how capitalized it has become as a tourist attraction. Now we are gonna move on to education. Now, I think I just talked about it in another video where I moved out here in 2020, worked here for 3 years, and just last month started nursing school. If I didn't tell you that, I'm telling you that right now. I've only been here in nursing school for a month, and the opportunities that I'm getting out here for both my clinical and my classroom education are way more than what I would have probably got back in California. And there are a lot of different, not just nursing schools, but a lot of different schools in general, which bring, of course, a lot of students, and specifically a lot of international talent and a lot of different industries. And it's incredibly interesting, like all of the people who come either to just pop in for a bit or to come here permanently. My apartment complex alone has made me interact with so many different people, whether it be I have a Russian opera singer that lives nearby me. I've met medical students from all over the world, all different types of families and retirees and whatnot. And I've also met a lot of Italian, Irish, French people as well, and having all these opportunities to learn from other people as well as learn in a center of education is honestly incredible. Another pro I want to talk about is the zero car life. I love it so much. I hate driving with a burning passion. If you live in the main part of the city, you don't need a car, which is good because cars are expensive out here. It is expensive to maintain the license. It is expensive to find parking. It is expensive to keep up with maintenance. And so with all of these factors, it's probably more cost effective to just take the train, walk if you are able to, just take advantage of public transit. For me, I pay $90 a month for an unlimited train pass. It's called the Link Pass, and honestly, best $90. If I was driving back in California, it probably would have been $90 every week or two for just gas, just because gas is so expensive out in California. And I love the zero car life. I like being able to pass out after a long clinical or a long day of school on the train if it's not packed, and just chill, turn off my mind, and just, I don't know, disassociate from the world from a little bit. Okay, the last beautiful thing that I want to talk about in terms of Boston are the seasons. I love summer, fall, spring. Okay, sometimes I like winter when it's being cute. With summer, everyone loves being outside, like being able to take advantage of like all these outdoor spaces and the nice cool climate and the warmth before the ice cold winter hits. And in terms of fall, very Gilmore Girls vibe. I never watched Gilmore Girls, but that's of what I've heard, where there's like pumpkin spice, and I love it so much. You can have pumpkin patches, pumpkin pasties, you can pumpkin pie, you can do apple ciders, apple cider donuts, apple picking, and enjoy all of the fall foliage. I'm trying to check this off my bucket list, where I go up to Vermont to just see all the fall foliage because it is incredibly beautiful. And when winter is not being a pain in the butt and just causing hypothermia, it's actually really cute when it makes snow, not ice. I love an indicator of things when it's just the passage of time. And then spring has been kind of weird this year, but usually with spring you get to see the cherry blossoms pop out a little bit. That's usually the time for the Boston Marathon and all these fun events. But yeah, I love the seasons, and people think I'm wild for loving the seasons, considering California is just basically hot and not hot. And I just like a physical indicator of when time is passing, when the seasons are being seasoned. And with that, we just went through my pretty much very comprehensive list of pros and cons. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video helps you out in terms of your decision of whether or not you are going to move to Boston. Now, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe. And with that, I wish you all a very good night.